class. Since I wasn't able to be at Cedar this week, I thought that I would record this video for you so that you would have an explanation of your lessons for the week. And so I'm just going to conduct class as normal and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I usually start out class with a verse. So my verse for today is 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. The reason I chose this verse this week is because we're going to be learning about how to write opinion pieces. And I know we've been doing a unit on journalism, and I've told you in the past that news stories are supposed to be written objectively, that they're not supposed to share an opinion, but that the news reporter is supposed to share the facts and nothing but the facts from a very objective viewpoint that doesn't express an opinion. And hopefully a news story would fairly represent both sides of a story so that the reader could make his or her own decision. But there is a place in the newspaper for opinion. And the difference is that when you do write a story that shares opinion, it's going to be separated from the news in the newspaper in a special section. And so we have what's called the op-ed page. And so later on I'm going to show you some newspaper pages that hopefully will look familiar to you, and perhaps it'd be a good idea for you to pick up a copy of your local paper so you can look at some of that on your own also. But basically an opinion piece is usually a spin-off of current news stories. They cover really any topic imaginable, and some of the things that you've probably figured that people would share their opinions on would be politics, and there's been a lot of that lately. You might compare different candidates, you might talk about different elected officials' views and share an opinion on what you think the right view is or what should be supported. International affairs, you could highlight a country in crisis or suggest how Americans can help. International affairs, business, you could describe different occupations for high school students to consider pursuing or discuss ways to promote job growth in a specific sector in your local community. But the idea, again, is it's not just a basic business story, it's you're giving your opinion on what you think businesses should do. Other ideas would be education. Now, obviously, this is something that's really important to us, so you could give an opinion on issues related to education. And with a lot of budget cuts that have been given recently for colleges in our state, I know that there are a lot of opinions being expressed on whether or not that funding should be cut and how budgets should be spent now. I mean, we of course don't want to have our college tuition going up. So that's a topic that could be, students could share an opinion on. It could also be policies, in a school or in athletics that you could talk about and share an opinion on. Health. You could evaluate the newest health craze. There's been a lot of opinions expressed about Obamacare and the new health plan, which just started to go into effect the first of the year. I don't know how familiar you are with those issues, but I know one of the things I just read about Obamacare is that there was a little known dynamic in Obamacare that is going to charge smokers more for their health insurance than non-smokers, and you could share an opinion on that, whether you think that's a good thing or not so good thing. So that's just another topic. Ethics. There are a lot of things that you could say about ethics. Big issues are reasons for or against laws on things like vital organ transplants, stem cell research, euthanasia. We just celebrated the 40th, well, I don't know if we can say we celebrated, but they just talked about the 40th anniversary of the court decision, Roe versus Wade, which was instrumental in making abortion legal in our country. So it's been 40 years that abortion has been legal in our country, and since then I've seen many articles and editorials and opinions given on whether or not that was a good decision for our country. That's a topic that you could express an opinion on. You could talk about your faith and different issues within the church. And of course, an issue that a lot of people would probably like to express an opinion on is sports. You know, there is, although football season's almost over, the Super Bowl's coming up. You could express an opinion on who you think will win the Super Bowl. There was a student last year who wrote an editorial on whether or not they should consider Flynn to be the quarterback of the Dolphins and the pros and cons of choosing certain quarterbacks. So, and that one was chosen to be published. So these are just some things that you consider writing about. I'm sure you can come up with a lot more ideas even. Essentially anything that's current events that's been covered or talked about in the news is something that you could express an opinion on. So I wanted to tell you also, as I'm going through the handout that you received, essentially opinion pieces can cover many topics, but there are only a few types or formats for opinion pieces, and I want to talk about that next. And as I do, I'm going to walk away from the camera and use it to show you a couple of news clips. But first, let me summarize that the basic types of opinion pieces are an editorial, which is usually a view expressed from the entire newspaper, a column, which is going to be probably a regular appearing column by the same person on various different topics, but they usually have like one subject matter. You could also see opinions expressed in letters to the editor, which are just, you know, citizens who write into the paper and want to share their opinion on issues that are current in the news. More recently, another place that people express their opinions are in web blogs, and those are of course on the internet, and typically people will subscribe to a certain person's web blog. I know I recently reposted a web blog article by Sarah Palin on the Roe v. Wade decision and the current president's stance on the issue. Another way that people express opinions is in cartoons. There are political cartoons, and sometimes you have to have a little bit of background information to understand them, but a cartoon can be a very effective way to express an opinion. So now I'm going to break away from the camera here for a minute so that I can show you some of those.